take a walk through the historic colonial districts of modern Mumbai, and then look at the famous waterfront of Shanghai. On the surface, these two distant cities share very little, but their skylines are tied together by a hidden force. The architects behind both cityscapes were the Sassoons, a single, largely forgotten family. To understand their scale, you have to look at the concrete left behind. The Sassoons built the foundational infrastructure of Bombay, and at their peak, they owned over 1,800 distinct properties across Shanghai. They arrived in India as refugees, running for their lives. Over the next century, they built an empire spanning the globe, and then they lost every single brick of it. The Sassoon Dynasty tracks how wealth is forged through global trade routes and then erased by the tides of geopolitics. This is David Sassoon. Born in 1792, he served as the chief treasurer to the ruler of Baghdad, placing his family in a position of immense influence. But when a sudden regime change placed a target on his back, David and his family were forced into immediate exile. By the 1830s, they had fled across the Arabian Sea and arrived in Bombay. For a refugee merchant looking to rebuild, this British-controlled port city offered a perfect blank slate. David didn't waste time. He set up a business capitalizing on the era's most lucrative global commodities: cotton, textiles, and the massive, highly profitable opium trade. As his wealth grew, he developed a network to expand it. David had 8 sons, and he deployed each one to take control of a separate strategic port city, pushing the family's reach out to Calcutta, Hong Kong, and eventually Shanghai. By placing family members at these choke points, the Sassoons successfully monopolized vast supply chains. They created a closed, highly efficient web of trade that pumped profits straight back to their headquarters in Bombay. That staggering accumulation of capital carved out a new industrial footprint for Bombay. The family funded infrastructure like the Sassoon Dock, which accelerated the city's shipping capabilities. Eventually, their focus shifted from industrial docks to heavy civic investments, resulting in landmarks like the David Sassoon Library and multiple synagogues that still define Mumbai's architecture today. David Sassoon had arrived with nothing. By relying on a refugee's survival instinct and tight family networks, he established his once stateless family as the permanent architects of colonial India's economic hub. By 1923, command of the empire passed to a new generation. Victor Sassoon was a visionary heir, and he took control of the family ledger with a high-risk strategy in mind. Victor looked at the international zone of Shanghai and made a pivot. He moved the very heart of the Sassoon Empire from commodities in Bombay to real estate in China. He began an aggressive acquisition campaign, buying up valuable land along Nanjing Road and the main riverfront. His crowning achievement was finished in 1929. He built the Sassoon House, which incorporated the Café Hotel. At the time, it stood as the tallest building in the entire city. At their absolute peak, the family owned more than 1,800 properties in the city. They held a private monopoly over much of the Shanghai skyline. Victor's gamble pivoted the family's legacy from merchant shipping lines to permanent, monumental real estate, cementing their dominance in the most expensive city in Asia. The turning point arrived in the late 1930s. As World War II loomed, Victor spent vast sums of his personal wealth aiding thousands of European Jews who were fleeing to Shanghai. But the geopolitical trap was already closing. In 1941, pressure and occupation by Japanese military forces compelled Victor to abandon his Shanghai crown jewels entirely. The final blow to the empire came in 1949 as the Communist Revolution swept across China and formed a new government. The immediate financial consequences were absolute. The new Chinese government seized all 1,800 remaining Sassoon properties. In a matter of days, the family's Asian real estate empire was zeroed out. The irony is sharp. They started as refugees fleeing a hostile regime in Baghdad. Over a century later, they ended up as tycoons stripped of all their wealth by a new regime in China and a rapidly changing India. Before his death in 1961, Victor Sassoon summarized the total collapse of his family's life's work with one realization: I gave up India, and China gave me up. While private fortunes are fleeting, the physical concrete remains. The Sassoons lost their fortune, but they still stand as the permanent, silent architects of two of Asia's greatest cities.